In our previous video, we talked about the theory that Will could be the one that created the Mind Flayer after manifesting his powers. But this is not the only theory that explains the origin of this mysterious monster. There is one interesting theory that tries to explain the origin of the Mind Flayer, and which unites it to the best kept secret of Stranger Things. What would you think if I told you that the Mind Flayer is really the first girl with which Brenner experimented, who ended up transformed in said creature? What if that girl was Sara, Hopper's daughter? Do you want to know this theory? For news, stories, and theories about this universe, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You're in Stranger Things Geeks. First, we need to explain how is it that Hopper's daughter survived in order to understand how maybe she could have turned into the Mind Flayer. In previous videos, we talked about this theory, but in summary, Hopper's daughter started having panic attacks, symptoms which drove her to a hospital in Hawkins, a place where after being diagnosed with the disease, she was gifted a plush figure. A plush similar to the one that Brenner gave Eleven after starting his experiments with her. In a scene where we see Hopper crying over the death of Sara, it can be seen that it is the same staircase from Brenner's lab, which leads us to think that Sara was used for the experiments, turning her maybe into the first girl to suffer the experiments of this cruel doctor. The theory that explains this fully will be left in the description of this video. But why do we think that Sara could really be the Mind Flayer? There are several important clues. When Hopper goes with Joyce to the Upside Down, he finds a plush similar to the one Sara had. This proves that one of Brenner's study subjects was in that place. But what's interesting about this is that when Hopper sees that plush in the Upside Down, the series shows us flashbacks of Sara, as if letting us know that this plush belongs to Sara. So far, it would only be circumstantial evidence, but this theory starts getting heavier with Eleven. Eleven, while she developed her powers to spy on the Soviet Union, got in contact with this place, the Upside Down, which is a dimension that existed at least before Eleven got in the isolation tank, but for some reason her mind connected with that place. It is as if something from the Upside Down wanted to reach our world, or maybe return to it. Another important point is that the Russians have a Demogorgon, which proves that these superpowers want to make experiments with these creatures. Also, the Demogorgons use the human body as a host, which proves that they are compatible with human biology, making it unlikely that they are extraterrestrials. They could be an artificially created human infection. What if really these creatures were actually created by Brenner? It's little what we know about the other study subjects of Professor Brenner. What is clear is that at some point he went from doing experiments with adults, as it was the case of Eleven's mother, to begin experimenting on children. For him, it was easier to provoke these supernatural cognitive abilities in people before they reached their adulthood. As we explained in other videos, the powers that Eleven has and her other sisters are not powers created by Brenner, but rather they are powers that can emerge from people if they suffer some emotional trauma or are exposed to some drug, as it happened with one of Eleven's sisters, who had pyrokinetic powers after suffering mistreatment in her home. This means that number 1, That is to say, the first girl with which Brenner experimented must have been a girl that manifested supernatural powers and was so powerful that changed Brenner's idea of experimenting with adults. But maybe it was also his first great mistake. This theory proposes that Sara began suffering Brenner's experiments when she was in the hospital. While Hopper thought that she was losing her life because of a disease, she was actually manifesting symptoms of the experiment to which she was being subjected. Once Sara supposedly loses her life, she is completely transported to the experiment area, where they begin testing with her different methods to develop her powers, some emotional tests and other biological ones. It is possible that during this experiment something went wrong. We know that Brenner was developing super soldiers to fight against the Soviets, but maybe his experiments were not only focused in developing mental powers, but also in developing super strength and other biological abilities. If Sara was subjected to psychological and biological experiments, there could have been an unexpected mutation as a result, where Sara began infecting whomever surrounded her to the point that the world would start to destroy. Perhaps the Upside Down has always existed. Maybe it was a world exactly the same as ours, but it paid the consequences of Brenner's terrible act. Brenner and the rest of the scientists sent number 1, that is Sara, to this world far away from ours. This world would work as a prison to avoid number 1 to continue mutating in ours and putting human existence in danger. After sending her to this mirror world, they closed the portal forever. Or at least this is what they thought. While Brenner continued his experiments on the other side, let's call it World 2, Sara continued growing and mutating, infecting the rest of the people to the point that she infected the entire planet. It ended up turning into the Upside Down, a prison for Sara or the Mind Flayer from which it wants to escape. Brenner then understood that he needed to continue his experiments. Even if one's incident was not a big one, he would not repeat this. He focused more his experiments in mental experiments, and he abandoned the biological experiments that turned one into a monster. But 11 comes. She creates a connection with 1, who is trying to return to her world of origin. 11 serves as a bridge to connect both worlds once again, and the rest is history. If this theory is true, it would be the best kept secret of the history of Stranger Things. A very tragic and dark history that shows us how the Mind Flayer really wasn't a villain, but a victim that ended up destroying the world to which she was sent because of the experiments to which she was subjected. If this theory were really true, how do you think Hopper would react to knowing what his daughter has turned into? Do you think that Dr. Brenner is the one responsible for the destruction of the Upside Down, thanks to him sending one of his study subjects to a world similar to ours? Could it be that this is the origin of the Mind Flayer? Leave me your opinion in the comments. And for more videos of news, theories, and everything related to this universe, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You're in Stranger Things Geeks.